Another person asks, thank you for all your teachings. I don't have a personal teaching, so they have been very helpful on this journey. Had an awakening about 10 years ago. And where I am now is that I go to work and all the normal everyday stuff is fine. But there is a contraction in the body that is trying to control. Certain things bring an immense amount of fear, and this contraction is basically that fear. I'm avoiding these things that cause the fear, even though I know I quote unquote should meet it, meaning meet the fear. It's like a deep conditioning, a survival mechanism that I'm brushing up against, and I don't really know how to deal with it. I feel like it has controlled all my life, and I don't want to control my life anymore. Can you please give me any pointers of this part of the path? Any direction is appreciated. So I think that it's always good to clarify things. And I'm going to interpret what this person has written in the way that seems clear to me. I hope it's close to how the person would hold it, but I can never really know because it's limited what I can ascertain from a few written words. But I think that there's this way that fear causes us to pull in and get small, and it disconnects us from our sense of power, really. We are powerful beings. And when we contract and pull in and get small, it's usually from a narrative that is disempowering. And so, usually, the sense of control is almost like a reflex that it takes that fear that's getting small and it it rigidifies it in a way where a person um, is efforting to move toward a sense of I'm in control. I'm in the power seat. So it's a movement internally to return to a greater sense of power, but it's very tight. And again, it's based or sort of overlaid on this underlying fear, which is also based in a sense of lack. Like there's something deficient about this scenario or about me, and I'm going to contract not only in fear, but in, you can contract even more and in a sense of like rigid controlling with the guise of, I'm going to take control and be empowered. But it's not really truly being connected with our truer sense of underlying power and the clarity that can present. It's a kind of narrowing of vision, and it's a narrowing of interpreting the circumstances or interpreting ourselves or others that becomes more rigid, and it doesn't really feel resonant with a greater alignment with the moment or an ability to adapt and flow and respond more agilely with more agility in the moment. And so often when a person says something like this person had said, I don't want the fear to control my life anymore. It's really perhaps the person saying, I don't want to feel that contraction and that narrowing down and that rigidifying. They want to be able to respond differently in the moment. And they have this hunch that they should be with the fear as a way to move forward differently. You could say that it's first very important to just recognize that we're doing the best we can in moments. For the most part, people are doing the best they can. And they're they're trying to find their way back to a more empowered place when they assume a sense of being controlling. Um, and they're trying to move into a place where they're in the know and they're going to respond to what they believe they know. And that somehow can sort of make a person feel like they're more empowered, but it's not really the true power. So what can be there's a couple things people can do. One is to look at the fear more closely, to see what's at value. What, like, maybe usually when we're afraid, like, no, I don't want this, it's because we want something else that's on the other side of it. Like, no, I don't want that. I want, security, or I want um to have certainty, or whatever it might be. And so when a person's more clear about what they're for, it can help them shift out of what they're against, and it can what the signals that they're getting, that the fears cueing them into, can actually be really valuable input to clarify. Okay, well, this doesn't feel right, and this feels, disempowering. So what does feel right, and what would be more empowering, or what would be the optimal situation, and how might I make choices that can further that more ideal outcome. And so you could kind of I kind of think of it as making friends with fear, insofar as, okay, it's telling me some valuable information, and signaling some things to me about things that feel off, or off the mark, or maybe not wise to pursue, or not safe, things like that. So it gives valuable input. And then it's not so reflexive, just to sort of want to just get rid of fear and not have it anymore, which is understandable because it's not comfortable. But instead of trying to get rid of it, it's good to see, like, okay, what's valuable in this, what's important to be paying, what's it telling me is important to be paying attention to, and things like that. And then we're connected with a truer clarity and a true knowing of the situation. And then we can respond with knowledge that we've really let in. And it's not just sort of a top down, like, let me control the situations with a, a surface interpretation of the moment. There's there's a coming together of different orders of intelligence, including survival intelligence, and energetic intelligence, that's trying to get our attention to pay attention to what's important. So it's valuable to look at the narrative that's associated with that fear, to see if it's something that rings true to you. Usually there's some ounce of truth in it, but often it's the mind, trying to fill in the unknown, or make quicker interpretations of circumstances, without the ability to kind of step back and see. And we all have moments like this where fear can kick in, but and sometimes the fear is really helpful. It might get us out of situations, or um, you know be an intelligence that is absolutely appropriate for the moment to get us to safety and things like that. But I think the fear that most people notice that brings them into the sense of wanting to be overly controlling is usually something with a little more nuance, that does have some narratives, and that plays into the psyche more than just simple survival. And so it's good to look at those narratives, unpack them, and see, what's the worldview of that fear, and to see, like, what parts of it are valuable information, and what parts are kind of habitually going to scenarios that you really can't know to be true. And so there's a kind of discipline to look a little closer at fear, but there's also a way that we can In a lot of moments of fear where we can stop and make a choice. Like, do I want to be responding from this fear? Or even if the fear is present, is can I respond from a different place? Like, can I respond from love? Or can I respond from courage? And so it's not always necessary for the fear to just be gotten rid of. In fact, usually it doesn't work to just get rid of the fear. Sometimes the fear even doubles down and gets even more expressive. Um, and so but you can still take a pause. And in general, it's helpful. Like Audie's given lots of talks on the juxtaposition of fear versus love and how they're really two different movements. And so, given that pointer, in a lot of moments, you can ask yourself, how is it possible to choose love or express, um, choices and perspectives that um, don't necessarily have to push out the fear, but don't have to be ruled by it either. So those things are helpful, but also on an energetic level, there can be this kind of contraction in the core of the body, especially down in the lower belly when people feel a lot of fear. And there's something beautiful about it in my view, where there's this kind of gathering in, like, and it can feel like a contraction, like, ugh, like, and it can even start to get kind of shaky if a person's afraid. But there also can be a beauty to this kind of gathering in, and sometimes that same fear can be transmuted into sort of a gathered sense of rooted empowerment. And the transformation of that, like, contracted survival, something's wrong feeling, to this kind of gathered, awake, ready, um, responsive intelligence is very rooted and grounded and feels like really potent, is often a transformation that happens when we give our attention down into contractions of the body through, it could be, let's say, meditating on with the light of our attention just resting down into a contraction, or it can be a kind of I had it a minute ago and then it kind of dropped off. Uh, well, we'll just go a little bit more with that one. So you can rest the light of your attention into the contraction, or it could be. I know what I was gonna say. It can be kind of like a body meditation where you hold a body part, or you put your palms over where you feel more tension or contraction, and you can just notice that as you're observing from a sense of spacious awareness that's looking at that contraction, that there can be this juxtaposition of spacious awareness and contraction that begin to blend and mold and not mold, but meld and harmonize. So a lot of times I'll really recommend that if people feel a lot of contraction in the lower belly or the hara area, it's also called the lower dantian, that you let the light of your attention rest there very softly and feel your body moving with your breathing and expanding and releasing, and just see if you can't hold both, this sense of easeful observing, full breathing, and contraction. And when you hold them both in your attention, eventually the contraction will start to feel that sense of spaciousness, that kind of soothing, washing, clearing tide of the breath that begins to soften the contraction as the belly is breathed in and out. So those are some pointers. I remember spending months just doing these kind of body meditations, I'd often lie on my back with my palms on my belly, or sometimes one palm on my heart center and one on my lower belly near the hara, and which is just a few finger widths below the navel, and just let it know that I'm there. I just spend time and just let the hara be exactly how it was, and even if there was a big knot, and just let it know that I was interested and wanted to hang out there with that sensation. And that's really different than going into narratives about fear. It's which maybe the person is, kind of naturally avoiding. This is just more about being with sensation. It's observing an energy and just letting the that spacious observing to coincide with this energy, and just watching how they inform each other. And so that can be really helpful.